Um, here, here we are in this day 26. We're going to be looking at risk management and our focus on this knowledge area is to examine how we can embrace calculated risk in order for us to balance between opportunity and certainty. And you know basically what risk is all about or what calculated risk is all about. Of course, understand the importance in seizing opportunity. And as you are trying to set up your business or you already have a business, how do you navigate through the vocal D environment of the business, reality of the business environment in today's world? You know, all these things speaks to how you're going to manage risk. So we'll see the processes involved in risk management and then end with a video that will also reemphasize or echo all the things I'm going to be sharing with you. So let's start. There's something about risk management that I think it was about 3 years ago or 4 years ago that I jumped into project risk management. Had a certification exam I sat for on project management, risk management professional, RMP. And this opened my perspective to a lot of new dimensions in business management. So it's something that I would really recommend that you develop skill on. Risk management skills is very, very important as we have dealt with emotional intelligence being pivoted to your growth and personal or professional development. So starting with the self-awareness. Likewise, when you're talking about risk management skill or the entire body of knowledge on risk management, it starts with you having that risk awareness. Okay, so all of these we are going to be examining to see how this knowledge can drive you towards achieving success and fulfilling your goals this year. So let's examine the meaning of risk. I'm sure if I ask us this, we will all have different ways by which we are going to define what a risk is. But for me, I will say that risk is a necessity in life, just as we have change as being the only constant thing in life. Likewise, risk. In fact, life itself is full of risk. I'm sure you must have heard that statement or that phrase before. It's just so true that the denial of it is what usually lead people into falling into, uh, um, unmitigated risk. Just like someone has said, I think is an unknown. No, it was Mark Zuckerberg who said that the danger of not taking risk is even the most dangerous risk in itself, right? When you are not disposed to take risk, is even one of the greatest risks that anyone can encounter in life. So, how do you embrace risk as part and parcel of life? And at what level do you want to take risk? These are some of the things that we'll have to examine so that in developing the skill, you'll see how helpful this is. So, risk generally is a possibility of something negative happening, the potential of you, the likelihood of a negative occurrence. So you see it as a form of likelihood, which then talks about the measure in probability, right? Or the severity where you talk about the impact. So these are the two dimensions by which risk is being reviewed in nature. It's reviewed in terms of likelihood of occurrence. Okay, there's likelihood, the possibility of it occurring. It can be 50-50, 70-70, I mean 70-30, 20-80, whatever it is. So you can measure probability from 0 to 1. Then you also talk about in the eventual case when it occurs, the level of impact it's going to have, which we talk about severity. So you measure severity in terms of impact, low impact, high impact, medium impact, and all of that. So this is exactly what risk is all about. And because of the kind of impact it's going to have, it drives uncertainty. So you see what I mean when I'm telling you about what disruption does to the business environment, facilitating uncertainty, volatility, complexity, ambiguity, right? So how then do you deal with the uncertainty? So we are just looking at one component of these drivers, one of the components of the driver, which has to do with uncertainty. So risk is focused on resolving the issue of uncertainty in the business environment. So in life, if you are someone who is giving in, maybe your personality type is giving into so much of anxiety, you are always anxious. So that means that it's an indication that you really lack risk management skill, right? So that's how important it is, right, for you to be able to develop risk management skill. So generally, risk will give you the understanding of risk will give you the orientation towards how you need to deal with the potential evil, the potential negative occurrence of anything, maybe in terms of an activity, might be in terms of an event, whatever it is that if it happens, it comes with threats, it comes with negative effects, right? That is what risk is all about. And you see that each time you wake up and you look around, because of the uncertainties, either in material things or immaterial things, you need to know that uh, um, anxiety is not the way to deal with risk. You can learn these skills, and that's what we want to look at. So, what are the characteristics you see within this risk? Of course, uncertainty, because life, as it happens, does not always give you guarantees. You have the lows, you have the highs, you have the ups, and you have the downs. You have the sweets, you have the sour, you have the palatable, and you have the unpalatable. You have the good part, you have the bad part. You have the righteous, you have the unrighteous. So there's always this dichotomy, right, which associated with uncertainties. And a lot of people are always afraid of diving into the next moment, which in this case now is future, because when you're talking about the possibility, it connotes and indicates a future occurrence, So it has not happened, it is not happening, but it may or may not happen. So that's the meaning of probability, when you are measuring it in terms of uh, uh, um, potential, or when you are measuring in terms of probability. So that is uncertainty. Then you also have, uh, in terms of impact, majorly because it's a threat, because it connotes negativity, you're going to have a sense of loss. And this comes in various degrees. That's why we talk about the severity. The loss can be minor, can be medium, can be major. God forbid you have a major loss, which ultimately can even be loss of life, right? So understanding a situation from that perspective will change your entire worldview. When you approach your life from this perspective, that there is a potential implication of a loss, it will also help you make informed decisions. You don't just want to take decision absurdly because of who you think you are, right? You won't just talk anyhow because this carry an impulse of risk. You won't just, it's going to really position you in order to be more careful about how you navigate through life. When you're pursuing your goals, it's going to help you even in making informed decisions. And these are part of what we're going to look at in terms of the strategies, right? Then, of course, the fact that it's a risk does not mean that when properly handled with good strategies, you cannot convert the threats to opportunities. So if you ask me, the reason why you need to learn, if you're looking in terms of importance, the reason why I do have to learn the risk management skills is because you need to continually, as you are dealing with life on a daily basis, navigating through your journeys, you need to consistently watch out for threats and be able to convert them. You turn them into marriage opportunities. And this is exactly what it is. So inherent in each risk are potential opportunities as well. As much as you have the potential loss tending towards negativity, you also have potential opportunity if you treat risk properly, if you plan properly on how to mitigate risk. Chances are that you can convert the probability into a positive occurrence. Okay, and then we are going to probably see some examples of how these are turned out, because you have a lot of projects which initially was supposed to, I mean, let me not even go too far. An example is COVID-19. You know, I was sharing yesterday in terms of business startups. There are many businesses, in spite of the lockdown, there are many businesses that, you know, erupted, that began during COVID-19. New ideas, creative ideas that were turned into uh, innovations during COVID-19. So this is a very good example of opportunity. And you've seen some people, you know, maybe because of they took ill or they had terminal illness, and that became, you know, an opportunity for them to learn new skills, which made them to become innovators. And I mean, so there are quite a lot of reasons why you need to learn this skill, so that you can turn every misfortune, you know, to great opportunity, or every negativity in converting them to positivity. Then the final one has to do with variability. And this is where you learn, you know, how to do the proper measurements. You know, there are certain variables which are basically two. I mentioned them to you in those two dimensions. That's how you take those measurements. So it's basically about two-dimensional analysis. If you want to really measure and assess or analyze risk, you know, when you have identified risk. So you look at it from these two dimensions. Number one has to do with the likelihood, which is measured in terms of probability from 0 to 1, right? So it's either it's not going to happen or it's going to happen at a particular percentage, then it's definitely going to happen, right, at 1. So that's how you measure the likelihood or the potential of occurrence. Then you also have the impact in terms of the severity, right? So what's going to be the level of influence, the potential influence that the occurrence or non-occurrence is going to have on you as an individual, or generally on the environment and every inhabitant within the environment. So these are the two key factors or two dimensions by which the variables are ascertained. Okay, I would also like you to see some of the components, and this will enable you to understand and appreciate the process, right? You have uh, basically 5 components across the 5 processes, but I will just share this because the last component is what transits into the 5th process. So the first component has to do with risk identification. Here you need to learn how to use tools and techniques to be able to identify, see, sometimes you don't need to wait for risk to be identified. Sometimes you have to take it as a project in itself. Intentionally, you have to be intentional about living. You have to always, you know, that's when we're talking about you being the risk aware, risk awareness. You are always, anywhere you are in whatever it is you are doing, you are always seeking and searching out for potential risk and threat, you know, which can militate against your success or you achieving your goals, right? So this is what risk education is all about. And there are different tools, there are different techniques that you can use, but we're not going to go there. It's going to be for further studies or your continuous learning. So know that is a very important uh, uh, component in risk management. And of course, that's even the first stage in the process in carrying out risk management, conducting risk management. So you do risk identification. Then the next one is for you to understand risk analysis. When you have identified risk, you log it, you put it inside what we call the risk register. You identify each of them and put them in their different components based on their characteristics and all of that. Then you need to analyze in order for you to be able to generate verifiable data, data that you can use to process throughout the lifetime of that risk, and also for you to be able to now carry out the other activities, which involves what action are you going to take, and that's the third component. Talking about mitigation, what action are you going to take in the event, in the case where the threats or the potential probable event happen, right? There have been predictions because In identifying risk, sometimes it might come in terms of predictions, prophecies. When you begin to make some research and evaluations, in obtaining historical data or lessons learned from previous project or previous events. You might have heard in this particular business or in this particular marketplace or in this, so things like this are so you have to check journals, read books, obtain information from the market or even from the country. Maybe you just relocated to a new country. You need to know, is that area prone to natural disaster? What type of natural disaster? Flood, tsunami, hurricane, all of these things you have to. So this is how to identify risk. And once you have done that, you develop data, through those registry you are going to create, the register you're going to create, the logs you are going to create. Then you now carry out analysis. And of course, because these are to do with data analysis, there are tools, there are techniques you can use for this data analysis. There are also technical applications that you can use for analyzing. So once you have made this analysis, your empirical findings, your results, the outcome of your analysis will now give you a well position, a good position in making right decisions, right? And the decision is not just only on the actions to be taken, even in terms of resource allocation. For instance, if you know you are living in an environment where it's flood prone and you've already analyzed that, in the next so months or in another 1 year or 2 years, there's going to be another major disaster in terms of the flooding. So you start planning. Part of your decision will now be that you need to plan for relocation. In fact, sometimes government will even give a flood alert and tell you everybody should relocate to uplands or highlands and all of. So these are all the things that the analysis critically would enable you, and harm you to have, because you're going to be able to make informed decisions. Then in terms of mitigation, this is where you'll be able to decide, specifically, depending on the type of risk which you have analyzed and identified and analyzed, you'll be able to know specifically how you are going to attack it, how you are going to, in terms of reducing the level of impact if you cannot totally mitigate it completely. So how do you reduce? How do you abate? How do you combat? I don't know how many of us have embarked on projects like that where you begin to hear about this kind of interventions. So they are all examples of risk management in action. They said they want to combat the impact of malaria. They want to combat the impact of HIV, all those stuff. So they are all risk mitigation projects, risk mitigation plan, implementation plans, So you have to enable this. So taking action, that's where I'm actually emphasizing on taking action and deciding on what kind of action is a major component, in risk management. And the final one has to do with monitoring. Of course, when you are taking action, as you are deploying resources for the mitigation plans and all of that, you need to monitor the performance. You need to monitor and review the performance. Very, very important, right? You need to look at areas, maybe even getting feedbacks, because monitoring involves you also collecting feedbacks, having effective communication that can result into improvement on your strategies, right? On the kind of ways by which you're going about your mitigation plan. So these are things that makes up the components of risk management, and they are very, very essential. Now, let's look at what calculated risk is. We've understood what risk is, but what exactly is now calculated risk? Whereas we said risk generally is the likelihood of the occurrence of a negative event or something that brings about a threat, right? Calculated risk is you knowing that this is a risk because it's a different level of risk. This is a risk and you decide to take this risk after you have done the analysis, you have developed your plan, meaning that you have actually understood the key components of this risk. You have understood the key component of the risk. You have identified the risk, you have analyzed the risk, you have planned on how you want to mitigate the risk, and yet you decide to take the risk in order for you to be able to maximize the potential of you turning that threat into opportunity. That's what calculated risk means. So you must have had a full grip. Knowledge and understanding precedes calculated risk. If there is no knowledge, if there is no understanding, full understanding, most cases or in all cases, like and you have that depth of conviction that you know what this risk is all about. And then you now decide, against all odds to take that risk. That's what calculated risk is. So usually you have your empirical data. So it's not something that you do by faith, as it were. That's why they call it calculated. So you'll have done your empirical analysis and you have your fact and data, or data and fact to back it up. This also has its own features, it has its own characteristics, so that you see how this is quite different from the normal risk that you want to take. One, because it's going to be data driven, you must have done all your detailed calculation, empirical data. You must have done it. Sometimes it requires even some level of investment. You look for what is not lost, for you to be able to appreciate what this risk is all about and then understand it fully to its nitty-gritty before you take action. Then second, because you have the data, you are able to weigh the pros and cons to establish what positives or benefits lies in there. So you will be able to do what we call alternative for gone. You do opportunity cost, right? Before you make your decision. So you want to weigh the pros and you want to weigh the cons, the merit and the demerits, the positives and the negatives, right? The benefit and the losses. So when you have compared this, if the benefit outweighs the losses, if the positive outweighs the negative, is the more reason why you want to dare it, you want to take the risk. And then the final one has to do with you having a contingency plan in case if Mr. Murphy happens. I don't know how many of us have heard about Mr. Murphy. There's always Mr. Murphy in risk management. How many of us have heard about Mr. Murphy? There's a Murphy's Law. How many of us have heard about Murphy's Law? It's actually more like, how should I put it? It's like a maxim, something like an adage, I think it's colloquial in nature, but these have been adopted into professional practice in project management. So in case you are just hearing it for the first time, uh, Murphy's Law states that anything in life that will go wrong will surely go wrong. Anything that will go wrong. This is different from the law of karma or law of retribution, but it simply states that anything that will go wrong will surely go wrong. And that alone should give you that sense that you need to be always prepared. When you have plan A, plan B, plan C, make sure you have plan D, E, F. So, meaning you must always at all times have backups to the backups to the backups. And they've used this a lot in data management. When you say you have a server somewhere, you still have some hidden server somewhere. Even sometimes you have some hidden storage within the main storage and all of that. And they've also used this in aviation industry as well, where after they've designed the entire system of the aircraft, they always have a black box. And inside the black box, there will also be something, because in case the worst, most revered situation, dreaded situation happens, you should still be able to have access to information that will help you mitigate the full impact so that you don't have 100%. That's one. You don't have 100% impact at any point in time. So this is very important. So Murphy's Law, don't forget, will always happen. Anything that will go wrong will surely go wrong. So you just need to prepare for the worst scenario. You prepare for the worst case. What if scenario? Okay. So that's what contingency plan is all about. And in project management, we have what we call, at this contingency planning level, we usually make provision for two layers of resources. When you're talking about the deployment of your financial appropriation, right? You make provision for two form of deployment of contingencies. You have the one we called the management contingency, okay, which will help you to take care of management decisions on contingency plan. Then you have the one we call contingency itself. So a project manager at that level can take decision depending on the type of structure of the organization. Manager can take decision and have access to contingency funds to take care of any form of contingencies. But when you have the contingency at the management level, usually you use this for high risk where there are escalations, where there are escalations. So these are things that calculated risk portends to us. So we have several types of risk. They are inexhaustible. In fact, the more we see evolution driven by changes and the different kind of disruption, the more we determine or discover new risk, right? So, but I've just been able to bring out this 7 because of some of the measurements I've used in time past, to analyze the nature of the business environment, talking about the PESU measurement, that's PESTLE, to measure the kind of external factors that can affect the business environment. P stands for political, E stands for economic, S stands for social, T stands for technology, L stands for legal, and the last E stands for environmental. So when you look at all these, you can see how these 7 types of risk can emanate from within this environment where you govern your businesses or you're pursuing your goals. First one talks about the strategic risk, and this is basically risk associated with or that emanates from business decisions, right? How you plan to enter a new market. Maybe you are looking at business expansion, or you are just even a business startups and you've done your business case, you want to pitch your business and move into the competitive market. So the kind of decision you take, you need strategy, right? And even within this strategy, there's a higher level of risk that is associated, which has to do with culture, because it was Dr. Peter Drucker that says that culture hits strategy for breakfast. So every organization, every business environment has their norms, they have their idiosyncrasy, they have their acceptable way of doing things, what they call norms, new normal, ways of working, right? So how you make decisions in navigating through that depends on the kind of strategy you adopt, which most times can affect or influence the culture that you have within the organization. Sometimes you have to even change the culture. So sometimes you go through transformation process or you go through a change process in order for you to adopt new culture or new norms. Those that were able to do that and transit or change their culture during COVID-19 could not survive. And part of it might be that you have to bring in some inclusion of technology. You have to learn new things. You have to upgrade your knowledge. Quite a lot. So all of these has to do with strategy, right? So sometimes you might need to also learn as part of your lifelong learning process, emerging strategies. So you keep reading, you keep observing the trends in the market, and keep learning new strategies by which you can have a proper positioning of your business or even yourself within your profession. Then the second one talks about operational risk. So this is internal within the organization. It's assumed that you're already operating, okay? You are already in operation. So as you carry out your daily operational activities, within the market or within the business environment where you operate, or in your profession, there are governing laws, there are rules, there are standards, there are principles as you pursue growth in your profession, how you go through that process. Sometimes things can happen that will disrupt the entire flow, right? So this might necessarily bring, like currently, maybe I should not mention this because this is going online, but you generally have challenges in some location or in some environments about professional practices, right? So how do you deal with that from your personal point of view in order not to be limited? Okay, in order not to be limited. Sometimes it might even be political, right? People are just politicizing decision making, and because of that, it affects everybody. And sometimes you might just get stuck. You can't move on. So You need to prepare for this so that in case this happens, you must have a fallback plan. You must have your contingency plan. Then you also have financial risk. I don't need to mention so much about this. Shortly, prior to the start of this present dispensation of a government in Nigeria 2 years ago, right? You saw what happened. Subsidy gone, affected the financial markets, affected the entire economy of the nation. And we are still trying to find a way to navigate and restore back the country to economic growth and all of that. So this has resulted into a lot of financial losses within the financial market. So it's naturally going to accentuate, market volatility. Is going to bring about a lot of credit risk. So those people, 2 days ago when we're talking about financial literacy, those people who are vast and they are so inclined to taking credits and loans and all of that, these are part of risk they have to really deal with. You look at the level of inflation rates now. Currently, Nigeria about 34 point something percent. It's just so crazy. And you also look at the dominant factors that drive these inflation rates, what policies is government developing around them, and that will give us maybe some kind of relief to determine whether there's going to be potential ways of addressing these issues. So you need to analyze some of these things. So determining the type of risks that are associated with your journey is very important, and that will help you to know how to address the issue using this risk management process in terms of your identification, your analysis, and you planning in order for you to know the type of mitigation process or strategy you will use. And of course, when you start implementing those strategies, you'll be able to monitor and review the risk. Then you have compliance risks. This is more like nature to us because we lived in a controlled world, whether you like it or not, whether you are conscious about it or not. You have laws, you have regulations, you have policies governing bylaws. All of these things speaks to one thing, that there's a need for you to be compliant. There's a need for you to strictly align with certain rules that govern the behavior of people within a particular location or within the confine of practice, right? If you're a lawyer, if you're an architect, if you're a medical doctor, there are regulations, there are laws that govern how you will practice. And if care is not taken, that might become part of what will limit your growth. So you need to know what you need to do in order for you to remain compliant. Otherwise, you can't move forward. Or as you're climbing, you'll be pulled down, right? So it becomes a threat. And generally, because we have the presence of technology massively driving all processes for us. So we have all these issues around regulating the use of technology, having proper data protections in terms of ensuring data privacy, the use of social. So all of these things are part of things associated with compliance risk. So you need to know the ambient of your rights within each of the areas of life that you're going to be navigating through, or where your path across this journey is going to lie. As you move across different industries, you need to learn their compliance policy. Like today, I had a meeting on the project, and thankfully, I've been in the sustainability industry for a while now. And when they were talking about the new entries about ESMS that they are introducing to the project, and I started educating them, they were just so fascinated because they felt so comfortable because I'm already knowledgeable in that area and it's one of my key strengths in the industry. So it shows a high level of preparedness in terms of my compliance in practice, right? Whereas you have some people that, I mean, imagine if I never knew anything about sustainability and they are now bringing this, that means that I would definitely shortchange myself, or there might be need for them to replace a consultant on the project because now is a necessity for the project to move forward and I don't have information about. So when you're talking about upskilling, learning new trends, this is exactly what it means. You may think that it's not needed now, right? The time when this need will arise, or where it will be necessitated for you to upskill, you might not have enough time for you to catch up with the demand of or the necessity placed on you for you to be able to upskill. So that's one thing about compliance. Then you also have reputational risk. This has to do with the image of your organization or your own personal image in terms of your reputation or the reputation of your organization, how you're going to, protect it so that all these laws, rules, regulations, the presence of you making decisions, or external now, some external factors, maybe you have already put your business out there because of the level of competitiveness in the market. Some people started making some kind of purported news about you, want to play you down, or want to just kind of like take you out using propagandas and all of that. So how do you deal with this? So in politics, anywhere you have democracy, because you have freedom of speech and all of that, there there are bound to be misuse of social media where people will begin to, I mean, just go on Instagram or Twitter, post something or make comments, you see the way people will rush and start. And they will do it so perfectly that they will even go online and first of all profile you. And God help you, they will start pulling your organization down. And people who are very vast in SEO, using SEO for communication on social media. That's search engine optimization. They use meta tags, they use pre tags, and they use I mean, they use all these tags to do their posting. Anything they post like this, you see your message everywhere. So you need to be very careful and know how to handle this kind of risk so that you don't start doing damage control on PR, right? Then you have the sixth one that has to do with environmental risk. I keep emphasizing one of the major determinants of good trajectory in the near future, commencing from now, has to do with issues around sustainability, environmental protection, talking about how we protect our ecology, how we protect, our biodiversity and all of that. And it cut across all disciplines now, because in all disciplines, people are talking about ESG, people are talking about ESMS, people are talking about sustainability principles, ways by which each of human activity is going to reduce the impact of climate change on Earth and on human living and all of that. So this is also one of the things that is posing so much risk. So you need to learn and know how to analyze and identify risk in that dimension. And of course, technology. Okay, so the benefits of taking calculated risk are enormous, starting from you building your confidence and having that audacity, for you to be able to, I mean, the way you are going to be bold and confident in taking bold decisions, making right decisions. Imagine a startup when you are doing your business analysis. Ordinarily, you will not want to hype and be looking at 1 trillion naira or $1 billion as your capitalization in the next 5, 7 years. That takes audacity. From the start goal, you're already seeing yourself at that height in the next 5, 7 years max, in order for you to become or emerge as a unicorn company startup, right? This calculated risk taking skill will empower you to have that kind of vision. And that's why it's not every investor, it's not all startup owners, it's not all business managers that will emerge as unicorn companies, because not everyone will be able to have that high, but ego high to be able to see into or beyond the risk associated with some of these environments and some of these. I mean, look at all the types of risk we talked about. But if you develop calculated risk skill, taking skill, you'll be able to know how to develop that confidence. Some things deep down in the books, cross across different data, what people are not saying, you'll be able to have that intuitiveness, be able to have that level of inclination for you to see through, and then be able to decipher where opportunities lie. When people are calling, all these business guru genius, they're not genius. It's just a skill they've learned over the years. They know how to seize opportunity even in the midst of crisis. So this is one of the things that you derive as benefit. Then, of course, talking about your swiftness in adapting to every change, every situation. So when you're talking about resilience, is resilience at the highest level. Yes, you can be resilient in terms of you are suffering, but you are still moving. But at what speed? What's the level of your velocity? What's your acceleration rate, right? If your acceleration rate is so high, then it means that your confidence level is so high. And this is worth calculated risk-taking skill is going to impute in you. So you will see that as you're adapting, you are growing thicker skin and you are excelling, you are succeeding, you are cutting through the fire. The fire is not burning you, and you are emerging like a phoenix. You are coming out even brighter and shiner and stronger. This is what calculated risk-taking skill is going to do with you by the time you begin to develop those adaptive skills. Then the level of your growth is going to be just beyond imagination, right? Like I mentioned, using the unicorn companies, all these unicorn companies, when you take their profile, analyze them from Flutterwave, to the likes of Elon Musk's company X and all of that. I mean, sorry, I said X, SpaceX. When you look at all these companies, right from the goal, there are a series of calculated risks that these people took. Look at Apple, for instance. When Steve Jobs took that risk of doing something outside the box, creating, and that's why up to date, Apple product is still extremely unique to all forms of other technologies that you see out there, computing technologies. So Apple, if everybody is thinking up, Apple is thinking upside down. When you look at all the algorithms, you look at all the prompts, the commands, the hardware, keys, and all of that, everything on Apple is the mirror of what you will find on other operating systems. I mean, this is just so fascinating. It took someone who was going to dare and do something differently. It's just like everybody is wearing. I remember growing up wearing crisscross slippers. Everybody is wearing right to right, left to left. And I decided to wear right to left, left to right. That looks very, what's it called now? Not to say something negative. People would think that maybe this one is mentally deranged because it's abnormal. It's not conventional, right? So thinking in that direction, it comes with level of sometimes high risk, but you dare because you know that you are just so convinced about the outcome that is going to set you apart. So this is one of the things that will accelerate growth. Then it will, yes, the competition within the market will make you as such that you are just in your own class, just like what happened to Apple. Now, I don't know which of these technologies really in mobile phone market is really competing with Apple, right? Apple is not really competing with anybody as such because nobody has been able to beat them in terms of technology. China has tried several times. They have variants of several phones and all of that. Some doing well, but because China has a population that beats all other markets. But even at that, Apple Apple phones are still doing excellently well, and it has stood the test of time. So this is one of the things that calculated risk is going to enable. You have that competitive advantage over every other person within the market, and of course, you continue to drive innovation. You'll be a leader in innovative technology. And that's one of the things that Apple keeps doing. They move from product to product and everything keeps standing out. So if you want to really stand out in your goals, these are the ways by which you need to begin to create an horizon for yourself. Don't think normal. Don't do copycats of what is existing in the market. It's not going to make you stand out. And you should be positioned to take calculated risk, having done all your due diligence in driving data, for your decision taking. Okay, so what are the steps you are then going to take? Because you need to learn how to now take this calculated risk. Having said and showed you the benefits of taking that calculated risk. So how are you going to go about? The first thing is you need to identify, starting with risk identification, you need to clearly identify the risk that's associated with your journey. You want to your goals is focused on technology, your goals is focused on social enterprise, your goal is focused on education, whatever the trajectory is, you need to sit down and do due diligence in identifying those risks. Some you have to call from research that has been done in time past. Some might be from projections or predictions in the markets in terms of market trends. Just look at what I shared with you yesterday. It was a research done towards the end of last year and published by McKinsey, talking about 18 new technologies and all of that. So some of these things, you have to analyze them, then be able to intuitively, intelligently bring out data and facts that will help you, in order for you to be able to identify risk. Then you then analyze it. Different methods. You can use SWOT method, SWOT analysis. You can use decision tree method. You can use scenario planning method. There are several methods you can use, but make sure you analyze it critically and then be able to come up with your verifiable data. And then you use the data to now determine the level of occurrence in terms of if this thing happens, right? What's going to be the level of impact and what's the chances that this is going to happen? If it's going to be that rain is what is going to affect, what's the chance with the level of climate change? What's the level of rain falling? And if it falls, what's going to be the volume of the rain? And is it going to cause flood? So all of these things, you have to evaluate it. And once you do that, then you determine what kind of planning. I'm telling you what Flutterwave did, what SpaceX did. So when you see them make a decision and decision failed, be rest assured that they are bouncing back because they already have plans in place. They have backup plans, they have fallback plans, they have contingency plans. So they have done all their due diligence in crossing all T's and dotting all I's. So they are not afraid in taking those bold steps. They are confident in their data, they are confident in the decisions they're making. So this is exactly what those are bold steps of calculated risk entails. And of course, as you are taking those steps, you are making continuous review, and you are taking and refining your decision based on the feedbacks you're getting. I mean, look at how much these guys are pulling out of the market because their decisions and their predictions are turning out to be excellent. There's something I want to just expose you to, which again I will ask you to do more further study on. When you're talking about risk, you cannot shy away from talking about the culture that you are going to develop, right? In terms of risk management. So I would advise that whatever aspect of risk you are going to embrace, wherein I'm telling you, taking calculated risk is one of the best skills you can develop for yourself, professional practice, and also for your business startups, right? You need to embrace strong culture. And what this culture talks about is you need to be self aware of the fact that life in itself is all about risk, okay? And how you intentionally, move towards handling the risk, understanding the risk is what gives you that high sense of awareness in every situation. So it's not like you are trying to poach or you are trying to poke nose. It's just the way life is. Like now, everybody's talking about EV vehicles because that's the new future of automobile. Is the new future of mobility, right? But how many people are taking time? When the government started making decisions and policies on converting our non-renewable energy vehicles to what's it called now, to gas engines and all of that. I mean, how many people sat down to calculate the risk and determine and then take informed decision about that? So these are some of the things that the risk culture is going to, inculcate in us, that anywhere in any situation you find yourself, you want to first of all determine what the risk is all about, and then be able to now make informed decisions. Then this will make you to commit more. So if you're going to see anything that will continue to trigger you to continue to learn, it has to be the issue of risk. Whenever you think about risk, because it has now become part of you as a culture, when you think about risk, you know that you need to learn more, you need to know more in all fields of life, either in medicine, because you know you have your vital health to keep, or in science, because you know that the world is now governed with technology, or even in law, because you now know that you need to protect yourself, in order not to be taken advantage of within your environment, either in business or in your social life and everything. I mean, so everything is going to help you. I mean, there was a day I was taking a sample just to collect data to find out from a community and ask them how many people knows about Nigerian Constitution. You can be rest assured that I was the only person that has even a copy of Nigerian Constitution out of almost about 50 something people that were seated in that particular conversation. I was the only person. As if that was not enough, I moved away from there. I even moved into our known environment. What's supposed to be our own niche as professionals? I asked, how many people have the Nigerian building code, NBC. That's the National Building Code that all of us are supposed to use as a Bible to practice in the industry. Again, we have less than 20% out of everybody. So these are things, when you understand the risk associated with every endeavor, it will make you commit to continuous learning, and then you can be able to give in to anything that will make you to acquire the knowledge for you to be able to have a leverage and position yourself for victory and success. So the culture will then give you some certain level of appetite for risk. So we need to understand what these risk appetite levels are. There are three levels that you can embrace, you know, when you are working or living with risk culture. That's, you are aware that everything around you has associated risk with them. So how then, when you're talking about appetite, appetite talks about how you go through the process of making decision in life on any subject or any endeavor. So this triangle start from the tolerance level, then determining the capacity level, and then your threshold. The tolerance level talks about the acceptable level by which you want to embrace the risk. The acceptable level, you need to determine it before you make your decision, or while you are making your decision on any endeavor. You must determine it, because when you have a cause to retreat, if you have a cause to look back on your decision, you know that you have not failed. Even if what you are seeing ahead of you looks like failure, you have that zeal, you have the audacity to keep going, because you have already predetermined the level of your tolerance. So that means that you have something that is going to continue to motivate you. Okay. Then you also have the capacity. This talks about the maximum level by which you can, resist the threats that is associated with the risk you are trying to embrace. Don't forget, these all are embraced within calculated risk. You have decided you want to take the risk. So what is your level of acceptance, the level by which, having accepted this risk or deciding that you are going in all way in on this risk, you are ready to kind of like embrace whatever comes out of the risk, either is a failure, either is a loss, whatever the threat nature is, you are able to withstand it. Sometimes it might even be financially inclined, maybe in terms of how much you're going to lose in order for you to be able to gain traction, in order for you to be able to move forward, right? So this talks about capacity. And the final one that talks about the threshold, it talks about your baseline, okay, your risk baseline, beyond which you cannot accept any other risk, okay, because this will give you unnecessary exposure. This sometimes has to do with how you protect your brand, how you protect your image, your identity, your value, your culture, your norms, your inclination, even sometimes your knowledge, your data. So you need to determine the threshold so that there won't be any violation. Okay. Because if you don't have what you cannot accept, people will always give you a taste of their own beats. And you need to know exactly what you can take from people and what you can't take from people. I'm going to end with a video which I'm not going to play, but I'll put it as part of what I'm going to be sharing with you as my communication because of time, because I want you to also share some of your key takeaways or whatever it is you want to reflect, or if you want to ask a question. But as I round up, I want to show you these three types of appetites or risk. The first one is you knowing that if anything happens in form of a risk, a threat to your life, to your goals as you are pursuing, are you going to avoid it? Are you going to face it, boldly face it? So this is what the appetite talks about. Because sometimes you might be tempted to think that you have what it takes for you to, you know, you might just have the fool of yourself and think that, oh, because I have so much money in my account, I can do just anything. Unfortunately, there are some risks that even your money will not be able to save you on. Just imagine health. If you expose yourself unnecessarily to certain things and it threatens your health, money may not be able to save you. For instance, if it's something that has to do with heart failure, renal failure, all of these things, money might not be able to help you out on it. So you want to determine how you embrace the risk. And that's why you need to know the different types of risk appetite so that you don't overfeed yourself or you don't unnecessarily expose yourself. The first one has to do with risk averse. This talks about you avoiding risk. Okay, and you see examples in the way government policies are driven, because usually in the public environments where there's so much people that will be involved, just one policy can derail the whole country. One single policy. So you don't just want to take any risk with any decision. You want to be 100%. In fact, you want to, whatever you can predetermine the outcome in terms of 100% or nearly 100%, you can't take it. So when they say some leaders are very slow to, yeah, they might not be highly intelligent in risk taking, but it's safe for them because they are not highly intelligent or highly skilled in risk taking, for them not to take the risk at all. So this is what risk averse talks about. You see this a lot, in public leadership, in public governance. And then you have the risk neutral. Risk neutral gives you the disposition to take more like 50-50%. You don't necessarily have to have a full glare or clarity about what the risk is all about, or you might, because of your personal disposition, you have not been able to 100% identify all the associated risk and analyze them, yet you are in the place or in the phase where you need to make decision. So you just do 50-50 chances, kind of 50-50 probability. So it might come positive, it might come negative. If it's negative, you count your loss and move forward, right? So this is what risk neutral is all about. You are just, I don't want to use the word nonchalant, but you are barely careful about the risk. You are barely careful. You are not dutifully careful. You are barely careful about the risks. And these most times are part of what conglomerates of businesses do. I mean, people who have been operating in the market, they have been successful in certain areas. So when they are trying to make decisions in some areas, they know that even if they fail, the past success can definitely take care of whatever failure is going to happen now. So sometimes they just want to just test the waters and try something. You see some of these, like I remember Coca-Cola in time past, I tried, some product that failed and they just, trade off. You also have some telecom companies push out some products, failed. I mean, so some of these things are part of what risk neutral is. The final one has to do with risk seeking. And this risk seeking is something that I would encourage you as an individual because of this kind of journey you are pursuing, right? It requires you to take significant risk. Don't be afraid in taking risk. If you have followed through everything I've said, risk taking, being a risk taker or a risk seeker is not going to be a problem at all for you because now you have a knowledge on how to navigate through taking the risk. So for every startup, for venture capitalist firms, they usually find themselves in this category, right? You have all the money, you are looking for support, you are looking for how to drive your ideas. You need to explore everything possible. I said it yesterday, when you are looking for funding for your organization, don't limit yourself and think that, oh, you can't go via this route and all of that. Try everything possible, legit and within the compliant regulations and all of that. Try everything possible. It's just like someone casting his water upon, I mean, casting his bread upon many waters, right? You are planting all the seeds. At least one or two or three at the end of the day will actually blossom. So that is what this risk appetite is. And of course, you would know at what level you need to transit from risk seeking to risk neutral, from risk neutral to risk averse. Imagine if those in the public sector are the ones seeking for risk at all times. Maybe we just have a total collapse of our society, a total collapse of the society. Because now we will not have people thinking with their head, we'll have people thinking with their mouths and thinking with their eyes. So I'm going to stop here so that I can take feedbacks and questions from us about risk taking. Any question? What are those risks? Because I'm going to give us an assignment. What are those risks you've taken that you think you want to discuss, regardless of what the outcome has been? And if the outcome has been positive, that you want to share to see how it aligns with all these principles? Or do you think you now understand how you want to take risk going forward? Because for you to fulfill your goals this year, it will require you to take some audacious and bold steps. Yeah, Dr. Shade, go ahead.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the class. Thank you. Um, This class reminds me of how important and how necessary the decision-making class was. And I'm thinking back to the homework and the scenarios you gave, and how each of the scenarios involves some sort of risk. And the decision-making process, identifying those risks to arrive at a decision. Obviously, this is a lot more complex, with a lot more factors, but I learned a lot today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. Yes, it's a lot. That's why I told you this is just on the peripheral. I just brought out all these simple terminologies, and the risk management itself is deeper than this, and you can tailor it into different areas. Sometime last year, I took a series of training for an organization on research, talking about risk management in research, just to demystify all the challenges and the risk associated with research project management. And it's a fact, I learned a lot in the process because I thought I knew more about risk management, but seeing from the dimension of research project management alone, it's just amazing. So you can actually learn so much if you give yourself more to continuous learning. Those areas that it seems to be pinpoint for you, before you take the next bold step, make sure you have a full knowledge about it, and it's going to really help you. And that will begin to grow new set of skill set for you. And you will see the way it will keep reconfiguring your personality type. For those, when you analyze yourself and you think that you are not very analytical when it comes to making decisions, you will see that when you bring in the subject and the skill set of risk management to it, you will be necessarily reconfigured. Your personality type will necessarily be configured to that of being analytical, being logical, as it were, in making decisions. Any other feedback? Any other question or comments? Subtraction, addition. Oops. Everybody's quiet. I hope you're going to do your assignment so that we'll know that you actually got the import of this session. Okay. Since there is no other question, I think we're going to pull it off for this evening. Like I promised, I'll share the video with you. The video is actually embedded in this, but because of time, it's just a recap of everything I've said, in about 30 minutes, but I will just share with you. So make sure you attend to the mail when I send that. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the class or session tonight. See you tomorrow.
You'll send us the assignment in the group chat. Dr. G?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know I was muted.